How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
All right, all right. Glad to do this. Obviously, like the rest of the planet, big fan of Sing Street. So,
Thank you
uh,
so much. Thank you.
but when I saw that you were doing this, I was obviously very excited. One, because Ned doesn't get to make enough movies, so just whenever that happens, I get very excited. But also just the part, and it seems like such a good fit. But I also imagine reading it, you're interested, but you also maybe start to think about degree of difficulty because it's asking a lot. So when does that factor in? Do you just read it as a good script, or do you start to think of like the work that's going to come?
No, I always go in. I mean, I'm not so much like the body of work, but you're as soon as I'm reading it, I'm like in it, and that's whether something is exciting or not, whether something resonates or not, whether you can really, whether you feel excited to sit in those feelings. And no, reading this, I knew that it was going to be a challenge emotionally, especially like filming, the schedules are kind of wild. And so knowing the weight of all of these scenes in the way that I would want to do them and service them. But I'm always really excited by that, I think. I think that's what makes this job kind of intoxicating and addictive because you get to go to these like emotional extremes and it's so cathartic getting to go to a place that you don't in your day to day, whether that be literally someone else's experience, you're living in someone else's shoes, but also the emotional extremes. You get to swing the whole spectrum, and it's like for work, so it's legitimate. But I was mostly really excited, especially when I got to meet Ned and talk about the logistics of everything, especially the time travel elements, which were all done mostly practically, so literally on set, and he described the transitions they were planning and the idea that it was such a like analog film in the way that she time travels through vinyl, and like I said, that the transitions would be physically done rather than some kind of CGI somewhere in an office. It was all really tangible and exciting, so I just wanted to dive in.
Oh yeah, you're already like essentially getting paid to go to therapy. So
Love it, exactly. So
you
healthy to see
would,
it that way.
yeah. Well, it's I think I would imagine it's incredibly satisfying to work through emotions in like kind of the safest space because it's fake. It's just, I'm generating them. The feelings are real, but there's no, for lack of a better word, consequence. Like you can go to these
Exactly.
places.
I think so. And also, there's that distance between you and your character. So, you are obviously projecting your own experience and analysis onto this situation. And so, you are analyzing your own self in these circumstances, but there is some safe distance of analyzing someone else's choice. And so, you get the perspective of seeing the full picture and like, would I do the same? And why does this resonate with me? And then, yeah, you get to go to these emotional extremes and not have to bear the consequences of having screamed and wept in public. It's like, no, no, that's the character.
Exactly. You can find sort of the happy middle ground of what
Yeah,
like what would I do, but also, it's in service of what we've sort of Ned and I have decided she's gonna do. But
exactly. So here's an
yeah,
offering of the extreme, but then we can pull it back. Yeah.
exactly. And then also it's a time, like you said, it's a time travel movie. So there's some element of getting to play with that and just getting to have fun with it while still taking it seriously, which I think the movie does an interesting job of. Like, most time travel movies are zany. And this one plays it kind of like, well, if this happened, how would you deal with it? The answer is mostly poorly.
Pretty much. And I think that's what I love about Ned's writing, that it's very emotional and sensitive, but it's always really grounded. It's never overly earnest. It doesn't overtread into this like sentimentality. It's much more real in the like, what would you do and how would you handle this? And I think what's also satisfying for the audience and for me as an actor was that we meet Harriet 2 years into this process when she's been doing the time travel for so long that she's not shocked by it. And so the audience doesn't have to allow her to play catch up with us. We're playing catch up to her life. And I think that's gratifying. And yeah, and I think it makes it kind of darker in a way that it's like the realer version of the implications of changing the past or not, rather than a kind of psychedelic, fun, everything turns out sunshine and roses way.
Yeah. And just the idea of taking music, like so many people use it for comfort and enjoyment, and obviously that's there, but also the fear that like the wrong song can bring out in her. It's such a palpable energy the movie brings out of. music is emotion. So here's like the extreme. Here's this other side of the coin that I imagine is incredibly satisfying to pull off because you have to really kind of think about the music and why it would bring her there, but then also go towards the actress.
And also, therefore, how isolating it can be to be that locked in the past and that kind of sentimental. Because I think even in the way that I relate to music, there are some songs that just pull me right back to a person or time or place, and I'm kind of myopically in that world. And you can totally get lost in your own experience in yourself. And so it's learning from this that it's like, if you just let the kind of reins go a little bit, if you don't clutch so firmly onto the past, then you can totally acknowledge. I mean, Harriet doesn't get this option, but as a person trying to learn from this film, it's like I can totally acknowledge the past and honor it without having to have it inform my everyday.
Oh yeah, I think the movie, Ned intentionally wants you to think back to like, oh, there's a song that makes me think of an ex or a relative or just an experience, and then you don't have to have the same experience as her, but you're going to have the same sort of emotional resonance of thinking about something.
And I think that's always interesting about a film like this. And again, the brilliance behind his writing is that catalyst for thought. I hope the audience sits and watches this and thinks the same of like, I wonder what I would do in her situation. Would I go back? Would I change things? And then you start to revisit all the times in your life that you would or could or wouldn't, shouldn't.
It feels like a movie that when you're done with, and obviously it's been done for a little bit. That's the weird fun part of this is you're like, I've done things since then, like life has gone on, but you're coming back to something, and in a way, it's kind of a good one to think back on because it is what you were doing in the character is finding a way to think back on something that's already happened that you're now revisiting.
Yeah, and I think, and you see it in a different lens, and I think that was the message of the film as well, of like, I mean, it's also the literal neurology of as soon as you recall something, you've rewritten the memory.
Yeah.
And so I think the takeaway from this was like, just take it for what it is, don't rose tint everything. And then here I am on the press tour being like, I can't believe we have to let go of this film. And so like, again, stuck in the sentimentality. But yeah, it's a good wake-up call, I think.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure any movie that you're on, there's days where you're just like, this is amazing. I've got the best job in the world, and that's the right way to approach it. But there's also days where you're like, I don't want to wake up and like, oh, this is longer. I've got places to be like you're just being a human being about it. So I think when you have the distance, it is actually fun to come back and be like, well, I'm not thinking about the bad day anymore.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah, and thus is the trap of sentimentality. But in this case, it's nice and rose tinted.
Well, yeah. It also helps that when you have good taste in movies, you pick ones that you're going to be happy to talk about a year later, 2 years later, whenever it comes back around.
It does make the press tour a hell of a lot easier when you're very enthusiastic about the project. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, then you have to act on the press tour and be like, oh no, I can do this. Prepare. Hang on. Okay, I got this.
And then you're back at work all over again.
Yeah, you're like, why? But I'm not getting paid for this one. This is less fun. Like here, at least you're like, even if worst case scenario of this, it's still a movie that there is no other version of it. Like there's only one of these, so no matter what, you have something interesting to talk about, as opposed to if it was, the seventh version of something, then it's a little harder to find something to talk about because you're like, I've heard people talk about it before.
Yeah, and I think then it's less of maybe a shared experience, whereas this is like you said, it's just something unto itself. It's just something that when the cast all gets together, like we were in San Francisco for a press day and David Corenswet is busy filming Superman right now, but he swooped into San Fran for the day and we got to reunite, and you realize that like, as much as you talk about it and share it, no one else knows the real experience of what it was like on those days on set. So it's just a really special kind of microcosm of something. It's just isolated unto itself.
So at its best, it's like going to summer camp. You make all these friends who are going to be lifelong friends, and then hopefully you text and then keep in touch, and then sometimes they become Superman.
Exactly, in those scenarios.
And it's totally normal, and nobody
that
calls
old
in.
chestnut.
Yeah, he was that guy on the set, and you're like, okay, I think you'll be able to do it. What are you doing this horror movie? All right, that's cool. And then, oh, okay, so you're gonna wear underwear on the outside now. God, that's gonna be interesting.
I know. I'm excited to see it. He'll be extraordinary, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, but that's the fun of making these things is like everyone is still kind of like on the upswing, right? Oh, 5 years from now, we're all going to look back and be like, it's insane that the three of us were in this movie, right? It's insane that we had the time to make this movie. That's sort of
It's
the fun
funny.
of, yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I ever think that far. Oh, like you don't. I don't know that in a freelance job that I don't know that you think that far ahead or think in that kind of tone. I think yeah, you're just I think at the time it's the biggest thing. And so even
right.
this shared experience is like yeah, the coolest thing that we're all doing. Well, except for Superman.
Yeah. Well, no, because it started like at the beginning of your career, it's any job, right? I just want to be able to do this. Then it's, oh, okay, I can keep doing this. Okay, this is now my job. Then at a certain point, you get to start to say, well, I want to make this movie, not that movie. Like, there's something incredible about the first time you can say no, right? Of just like, it's insane that I
Yeah.
can choose between these things, have choice in
Yeah.
this.
I think I'm trying to be much more like aware of that and mindful of that as well because it's like otherwise you just tend to especially when you love your job and you're so like grateful to be here but you lose track of when it was different I think because you're just on the in the momentum of trying to charge it forward that yeah I think you do have to have moments like this where it's like I've always loved Searchlight movies, this is like the studio I've loved, and so I'm sitting on a press tour where it's like I'm promoting a film that I'm like on the poster of a Searchlight film, and if you told me that 10 years ago 5 years ago or anything I'd be just chuffed. And so it's like to take time to acknowledge that and like yeah, and to acknowledge those moments where I got to have more agency in my career and again acknowledge like how that will change going forward. It's yeah, it just I'm so chuffed.
No, it's sort of this really people I don't think value it enough. It's the first time you can go, I want to make this, but I'm gonna say no to it because I want to be able to make this other thing, or I want to be able to not work for a little bit, or whatever the case may be. The idea of I'm saying no to something that in another scenario I would love to do,
Yeah.
as opposed
And
I'm
I
just
think
saying I don't
yeah,
want to do it.
and saying no to things that don't quite align with your morals, it's like you get the opportunity to do that. And I think if you're surrounded by a good team, which I have been so lucky to be, I think it was really early in my career that my agent was saying, you don't have to do anything. And I was a kid, so I really didn't have to work.
Yeah.
But but then you get to the point where it's like this, yeah, you need to earn money. But I think I feel really grateful for the guidance that I've had where it's always been important to ensure that it's aligned with your kind of moral set and mindset and also your aesthetic because I think everyone is shaping a very different career. We're all very different in this industry. So it's like yours doesn't have to look like anyone else's.
No, and you have to be happy with it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't
Yeah.
like what you're doing, why is anyone going to want to watch you do it?
And also because life is happening now. So just
Yeah.
so be happy at work. Yeah. Yeah. If you
Exactly.
can.
And I think you're doing a great job of that. So it's
Thank you.
exciting to see it continue. And I enjoyed seeing you in this, and I obviously can't wait to see what's next. It sounds like the plan is going to work out very well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Here's hoping.
Oh yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It's fun to get to talk about a movie that you want to talk about, right?
Truly. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.